So welcome to Jane Mallet Yoga. This is my first podcast, and I want to really warmly welcome my teacher, Lorraine Taylor, direct from Thailand. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here with me. So part of the desire to do this is, for a number of years, I've been wishing to host you here in Australia to share some of your beautiful offerings and teachings here with many of my students and my network here in Australia. But as we know, the recent pandemic has locked us down in our various countries, and also we've become more tech savvy. So here we are on Zoom.
Yeah.
So welcome. And I just want to introduce you. I've got a lovely bio here just to give some background for Lorraine. So Lorraine's been immersed in yoga for 30 years. Her studies have taken her both into traditional Indian ashrams and modern day gurus. She's been an international teacher trainer for the last 10 years, offering programs in Europe, Asia, and New Zealand. I was lucky enough to learn from yoga, learned my first 200 hours with Lorraine in Bali, and then a few years later, which was a couple of years ago now, in India. So I have such beautiful, fond memories of my times in Asia and with Lorraine and diving into the sacred journeys with yoga. So she's explored the yogic paths of Hatha, Tantra, Bhakti, and Jhana. I never know how to fully pronounce Jhana.
No, English people say Janana, and in India it's Gyan or Gyana.
Ah, Guyana. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Lorraine offers a nurturing feminine approach to the lineage of classical yoga, which honors the different levels of our being with insight, compassion, and kindness. Lorraine became inspired by nature-based practices during the lockdown periods through the pandemic. And personally, I know she experienced many profound healing aspects through nature. She also studied ecotherapy and forest bathing. And Lorraine has a deep understanding of trauma-informed practices, which in my experience is so important in yoga teaching, and especially for these current times that we're living in. She's presented at international conferences such as the Science of Non-Duality, Yoga Journal, Embodiment Conference, and the Shadow Side of the Feminine, the Summit. She's currently offering advanced yoga teacher trainings to women both online and in person at her home in Thailand. And we will share in the description below links to her different trainings, but they may pop up in our conversation as well. So we'll go with that flow. So the focus of today's conversation is I wanted to have a discussion with Lorraine, because one of the most common questions I get asked by students or potentially prospective students, or even people in my community, when they hear that I'm a yoga teacher, and then they ask, what sort of yoga do I teach? And I respond, feminine yoga. And it can sometimes open up further discussion. It can sometimes shut things down. It's an interesting topic, but it's one that I grapple with on a regular basis. And as my teacher, I would really love, and I feel honored to have this conversation, both for myself, but also for my students and my network. So maybe just to start off, like as a really broad definition, how would you describe what feminine yoga is?
That is it's actually not such a simple answer. Yeah, it's not such a simple answer. I think it is, one could say, if I was to simplify it, I could say it is a more life-embracing, colourful, full, enriching, poetic, nurturing, compassionate style of yoga. Lots of description words there. As opposed to a very dry and zen approach that we have been quite often passed down, quite a lot of the styles of traditional hatha yoga that were passed down by men in this very traditional way. And I think for me it worked. I liked, and there's nothing wrong with that style. of a more quiet Zen-like approach. It just didn't work on many levels for me. I loved yoga and I was so interested, and there was a part of me that loved this flavor of yoga, this traditional flavor. But when I tuned into my own body, my woman body, my feminine body, and everything that's inside, like my emotions, my mind, my desires, what opens my heart,
your hormone.
Yeah, my hormones, exactly. I wanted to move in a different way. I wanted to breathe in a different way. I didn't want to hold my breath for 3 minutes, pushing the energy, la la la. So over the years, I've just come into the way I want to move, the way I want to breathe, what works for me as a female in the yoga scene. And what I started to see is that other women were like, oh, can we do yoga like this? And I was like, well, yeah, this is yoga, you know, I'm not changing anything. It's just the attitude is different. There's a lot less kind of dogmatic, strict, linear aspect to it. And this was more compassionate and softening and allowing. And
so just for the listeners, my understanding and Lorraine's background, she was an Ashtangi. So, and that my training was in Vinyasa Ashtanga, not a pure form of Ashtanga. But what I'm fascinated is you did follow that path for many years, a very dedicated Ashtangi. And do you want to just share some of that story of the transition from Ashtanga, which personally I find to be a very masculine approach? And my understanding, it was created for the Indian Army to create very strong, focused young men, you know, which that's again a historic, that if that gets passed down through our lineages and then it lands in a woman's body in this day and age with our current needs. And my understanding is your change, or the challenge or change, came at around your midlife in your early 40s. Was that right?
Yeah. I was doing my practice. It's quite a long sequence. And I was very vata, I was very slim, and I was skinny at the time. So it's actually wasn't, now I've studied more Ayurveda and I've looked into actually what works for me and my own body. But Ashtanga was on one level amazing for me because it brought me into the moving meditation, but as a practice to continue through the whole of my life, no. It wasn't working so well with my body. It was making me too skinny, too hot inside, too dry. I actually needed to go slower. And so the like less movement, less practice, less hours. I thought I was being a super yogini and I was doing like 4 hours of practice and all of this, and I got over enthusiastic and felt pretty drained actually. And this came at a point when I was going through a divorce and my whole life just kind of changed dramatically within a couple of months. And I found myself separating from my husband, and I found myself leaving my job in the Ashtanga retreat center. And I didn't have the inspiration anymore to continue with that practice. And I was looking for a practice that would teach me about energy, because I was starting to feel energy flowing in my body a lot more than I'd ever done before. And I was asking my teachers, hey, what's this? Tell me about this. And they were like, not so interested. They were like, just do the practice. Don't go into that, you know.
Well, I'd love to explore more what this energy is, because I've got a little idea, inkling of what it is when we talk about feminine yoga. Is that the awakening of Shakti? Would you say that was a sense of Shakti?
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's energy moving in the body. Yeah, that is described in Tantra as Shakti.
Yeah.
And the more you open up the channels and the more you look in, then the more you feel. So like my interest was going into, wow, that's new. What's that? I want to learn all about that. So yes, I went to a tantra school and I learned about chakras and I learned about energy flow and Kundalini yoga and all of these, and it was amazing because actually their practice was very slow. So I wasn't doing any more vinyasa, jump back, chaturanga, all of that kind of style. It was just exactly what my heart was searching for. And I went deeper into feeling the energy in the body, understanding the chakra system, understanding the 5 bodies.
And then you beautifully wove that. Certainly in my training, I experienced with you with the vinyasa flow and the energetics and the tantra wisdom. Yeah, so one of the things that I'm hearing in what you're saying that resonates with me, and maybe this is how we'll pick this out, is what resonates when I feel what it resonates for what a feminine approach to yoga is. And one of my experiences attending many yoga classes was when I felt emotion come. It was tears, or as you're describing, these kind of awakenings of energy. I was always curious and wanted to explore this more, but I always felt it was quite judged, and it was to come back to stillness. And I remember in a Vipassana retreat I once did, and I was really curious about all these sensations, and I was told that they oh, that's just an illusion. And I'm like, no, this is actually really happening in my body. I was going through menopause and it was a hot flush, and I remember this teacher saying to me, you do realize it's just an illusion. And and it's like, I could tell you a lot of rage came up with that one. But it's an interesting thing that when emotion comes to us in yoga, there's some yoga classes and schools that I've attended where it wasn't embraced or acknowledged or held, or so for me, one of the big things was permission to feel in the yoga, and not in a way that's like, oh, let's just feel and we'll all just, fall apart. And, it's like learning how to feel and be with your body and hold yourself in that, hold in circle. But for me, I've learned how to hold my own emotional soothing through yoga. But when it's denied, when it's kind of or pushed away or it's not real, for me, it just piled up.
Yeah.
Of the emotion of what it feels to be in a woman's body, which is so much more cyclical and layers. And you mentioned becoming a mother, and I'm a mum. Like, the whole experience of becoming a mother is such an emotional process and growth and understanding. And so I think that's it. It's where the permission to feel, and then all this incredible wisdom that yoga can offer us. So I'm interested in also the past. I understand the history of yoga when we talk about these recent traditions of yoga, but there's also yoginis from way back. And I think my understanding is that Tantra and Bhakti were traditions that really did embrace the more feminine sides and more feminine women wisdom. Is that true, or is that something that you understand?
Yeah, there are certain parts of yoga like Tantra and Bhakti that are more colorful, let's say, and they have gods and goddesses, and it's about devotion and offering through the heart, like you're in a relationship with somebody. And it's hard to generalize with men and women because some women don't feel their heart very much, and some men do. But generally, I mean, if we're going to generalize, and I think we have to, because there are differences between men and women, and part of that is explained through the fact that women can make a baby inside of their body, And so we have certain qualities that are different to men. Like one of the things that I read was the ability to read faces. For women, we're much more intuitive and able to like feel and perceive, and we have to, because when we have a baby, and even if we don't have a baby but we get a cat instead, we still have some sort of mothering energy, and some women have it more than others and all of that. But when your baby's born, you have to learn, and you don't know, you're just there as a mother, but you can read their expression because they can't communicate yet. So if that baby...
Survival of the species, we were designed to do this, yes.
So we've got this, exactly, we're built in a certain way with certain, well, we have different bodies, we have breasts and yonis, and the men have different, physical and all of that. We're different in the body, physical body, and some teachers I've heard talking about, like, even the mental and emotional body is different in women and in men, and our purpose, our spiritual purpose to be here. Oh, there's your cat.
Yes, she's joined.
Her name?
This is Cleo.
Cleo, that's it. Oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah. She knows when we're doing online yoga. She always joins.
She comes into pose, lift a leg up. And, they're the best yoginis, actually. Cats, amazing.
They're the best yogini company. I love it. They just...
Oh my God. And meditators, they're just like, samadhi. So coming back to the spiritual purpose for a woman to be in this world with everything that she has. I heard one teacher recently saying that this is different to men, like our reason to be here is different.
Interesting.
And so he was outlining all the differences between men and women, and of course we can't say that is 100%.
Well, we can't generalize 100% because there's some men who are more feminine, there's some women who are more masculine in terms of qualities and energetics. But I think we can't get away from the fact is that hormonally and physically we're wired on a physical body, and that has such a huge impact then on the mental and the emotional, and so we don't want to generalize, but we're needing to, because this is such a big question. So the question I'm kind of really interested is the students who come to you, like, what are they needing from yoga? Like, why do you, what have you experienced that they come to you when they enroll in your, let's say, feminine yoga teacher trainings or classes? And maybe they might not even know before they come, what do you find they actually receive or understand after they've done trainings with you?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them have been through a lot of a wide variety of styles, like Ashtanga or Iyengar, or and then they're searching for something more, like I was when I found Ashtanga, or like I was when I found Tantra. So they're wanting to explore what is feminine yoga, and I'd say very much they're wanting to explore their own feminine way, how to be a woman, how to connect to themselves more deeply as a woman. I think is because we are brought up in a world that is very masculine. So I think a lot of them actually come when they've been in a career, a very masculine career, and then they just one day they go, no, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I don't understand my emotions. My relationships are going wrong. I want to learn more about me and honor myself and stop pushing and stop, this masculine, well, we can call it a masculine way. We could call it just like a more pushy way. They want to listen more. They want to slow down. They want to soften.
So one of my ways I often explain to beginners the difference between masculine and feminine is the yin and the yang, because I think more and more people now understand yin and in terms of qualities. So for me, the yang, which I was one of those career people that before I came to teaching yoga, and my experience working in corporate organizations, you know, one, there's a lot of male leaders above us because, you know, there's a glass ceiling that often women don't go beyond or aren't allowed to, aren't invited to. However, also women who have children or are prioritizing other aspects of their life, often those corporate careers don't welcome you unless you're all in this certain way. But for me, that's an incredibly yang, very active, very focused, very outcome oriented, you know, deliverables, you know, KPIs, all this. And many women, including myself, are in roles that are actually much more about connection, you know, like often they were in HR roles or teaching roles, caring professions, you know, because women are naturally drawn, like the workforce data shows this, more are in those roles like this. But when you're working in these systems which are hierarchical, and I completely get that yang burnout. I didn't know at the time, only once I started discovering more these feminine approaches, including yin yoga, which I know it's a label for a style of yoga, but if we really take the word yin as a more general term of qualities, you know, rest and stillness and the earth and darkness, the shadow, you know, so all these aspects, because I experience in a lot of yoga circles also there can be just a spiritual bypass of always going for the light. And so there's a whole nother aspect there of the feminine, which is going into, like, if we start to really feel, we're not just going to come along to a yoga class and feel good. Sometimes, like, you know, things from the past and shadow comes up and stuff we need to work on. But yoga is such a beautiful healing modality for us. So yeah, that yin yang and that corporate. So when the women then maybe come, maybe they knew that what have you observed in them?
And definitely on my trainings, there is it's more about balance. So it's not about, let's all be goddesses and we can be feminine and we can, you know, do this. It's actually about, as you were saying, how to hold how to witness, how to hold yourself when all of this is going on. So if you're having an emotional day, you're not just, well, you might, you know, let's just be very honest here. You might just go into the emotions and get really messy and all, you know, and that's how it had to play out. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand ourselves more deeply. So what the beautiful thing is, and especially for women, I think, is like, your emotional body is good. Your emotional body is part of you. Like, for years, we've all been kind of given the signals that, oh, stop crying, or, oh, you're being dramatic, or you need to, like,
get your shit together.
Get your shit together, toughen up, like, you know, be stoic. And so to give someone permission and to get them to, like, honor their emotions, like, this is natural, this is part of us. And actually the emotional body brings color to our lives. So if we didn't have any emotions, we'd be like meh, 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 meh. We'd just be very dry. It'd be like everything would be gray if there was no emotions. But the emotions can be tricky because we're going from one to the other. They're always changing. So when we're happy, we're like, yeah, it's amazing, and we like happiness. But when there's like a difficult emotion like anger or sadness, one that doesn't feel good, and we're not trained to know what to do with it, and so we reject it and we want to try and get it out the way and do more yoga quickly so I can get back to being happy. And that's not the way. It's not the way. That just causes suffering. So we learn to see yin and yang, darkness and light are part of everything. We can't, that's life. Yeah. And actually when we've been through darkness, then we can really see the light, and we couldn't have one without the other. So we learn to embrace both. It doesn't mean
And one of my beautiful teachings I've learned from the training, this was more the training in India, was the Shiva and the Shakti. So maybe we'll just, because now we've talked the yin and the yang, maybe I think for me, the discovery of the feminine yoga was the awakening of this Shakti and this permission to feel and all this color and all this emotion and movement and this, who am I? Yes, my body, I'm experiencing all this emotion in the now, I'm feeling all this sensation. And then I've got all this story where it's, you know, that travels back into the past. And there's all these parts of me, but there's this higher self that's observing this. There's this still a point, there's still a truth, this connection to something that, I mean, I've conceptualized it now as the divine masculine, you know, but that's the way I think I've kind of can feel this, where the fluid motion and where I surrender into this full creativity and this feminine flow and my hormones and the change I'm going through and the creativity, this coming into this perspective of just seeing it and seeing it as this whole, and that I'm both. I can be in stillness and in my movement. I can be moving and in my stillness, almost this. So yeah, if you can just unpack it, I've given my kind of rough understanding of the Shiva Shakti from how I first experienced it and then conceptualized it. Yeah.
I'd say it's maybe easier to like describe it as Shakti. Let's say Shiva is the witnessing presence that is aware of everything that is going on. So the Shakti is more like the changes that happen, or the body, the emotions, the breath, the thoughts, everything that we can perceive is Shakti. So, and the perceiver is Shiva. So Shiva is the witness and Shakti is everything that can be witnessed. And we need this, because if we're not able to perceive, if we're not able to remain aware, then what happens is we get lost in the Shakti, as you just said. We get lost in our emotions and we can't see ourselves.
Lost in our process. Like sometimes groups of women can be in such process for so long, whereas there's a kind of, you know, this is where the benefit, or where we need to see this as the masculine is needed as well, the feminine and the masculine, and not to one at the expense of another.
Totally. Yeah, it's all about balance. And yoga really is about that balance of the masculine and feminine. So it has been very masculine so far, and that's why I'm teaching feminine yoga, because I feel that we need to focus a little bit more on this, but ultimately we need to focus on both. Do you know?
Yeah.
It's not one or the other, it's actually the union of both.
Yeah. That's so nice. And I think because sometimes when I do feel it's a bit like, you know, the minority group at the moment, the women or the feminine yoga are speaking up a bit, and it's growing and there's more teachers of it now. And but it's to be really mindful of, it's a balance. Yes. And it's not to throw all the tradition out, it's to really honor it as a lineage, but to honor it as a historic moments in time. If it was men who were the teachers of the time that brought the yoga from the east to the west, and they were the first lineages and first teachers, it's understandable. Yeah, it's not to say it's wrong. And
absolutely no, it's understandable. If I was a man, I'd be doing the same thing. But because it's almost like women just standing up and going, hey, this is my version of the teachings, and this is how I like to move, and this is how I like to breathe, and I'm following the tradition in my own teachings. Like I'm doing Nadi Shodhana and I'm doing all the classical techniques, but I'm doing them in my way. And I think we have to, and it took me a while to get to this point where I felt like I don't care what, you know, I've done it so many times that I start to find my own, I know what's right for me.
Yeah.
And so I used to do like holding the breath, retentions and lifting the pelvic floor. And because I was taught this kind of more pushy, energetic, strict way of doing pranayama. And now I don't retain the breath. I just allow it to be soft and flowing, and that there is a different approach, and it's just as powerful.
Yeah.
So, but it took me a while to come to, because there's all this like, oh, they're going to think I'm really flaky, or like I'm not doing it properly. And then it's, I think after 50, you're like, I don't care.
So do you think that's got something to do with age? Like the stepping, like you've had so many experiences now, and now you're more confident to do what's right for you. Yeah.
I think it comes with experience.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see the younger generations of yoginis and yogis and how yoga continues to evolve. So why do you think we need a feminine approach today? But I suppose we've started to touch on this, to redress some balance, maybe, is the...
Totally. Oh my God, yes. I mean, it's just like climate change and the political system, the medical system, everything is so coming from this pushy, forceful approach. And wow, you know, if you listen to Indigenous people who are more connected to their roots and the whole picture, they're just shocked at what's happening to the earth, to, you know.
So do you think women, we talked earlier about the biology, you know, do you think women have a more innate connection to Mother Earth, do you think? Is there a...
Absolutely.
And so therefore, if
no,
that's...
Yes, but the, you know, like if you went to the Aboriginal into Arnhem Land, the men do too, you know?
Yeah. So maybe it's more the patriarchy, the systems of the male structures than men. I'm wondering, is there a short practice that we could do?
Well, I just wanted to say that my teachings on feminine yoga very much embrace the 5 bodies, the 5 levels, and also the 5 elements, because everything is made of the 5 elements. And this is a beautiful way where you can understand that we're all made of the same stuff. We all come from the same source. The mountain, the animal, people, you know, whatever it is made of the same fabric. It's made of the 5 elements. So that's something really powerful that you can look into and feel more connected to nature and more connected to ourselves and understand who we are. But another way is through the 5 bodies. So we'll do a little meditation on the 5 bodies. And that will touch some people, and other people will like a different teacher, or, you know, so it's just about, for me, it's just about, like, it's almost like when I'm leading a meditation, it's like I'm saying what I really feel and what resonates with me. And if others like that, then that's great, but that's all I can do. I can only express what is coming from my own heart, you know. So yeah, I would just ask people to, if you're watching this little meditation, just make sure you're really comfortable. And also, you don't have to close your eyes if that doesn't feel right. You can keep them a little bit open, but soften the gaze of the eyes. Even if your eyes are closed, feel like your eyes are becoming really soft and still. And then just start to feel your physical body. So I love to, like, just feel the shape. It's incredible, the physical body, the shape of us, how it's contained. We're contained in this shape by the skin. So see and feel the skin and the gentle breeze on the skin, or the connection of the skin and the ground, and how it's holding in all of the bones and the ligaments and the muscles and the blood and the fluid and the organs. Just start to contemplate that, because we can forget this so easy. Our body is a miracle. The physical body is incredible. And feel your eyes softening. And feel your mouth The way the mouth is wet inside, there's a tongue and teeth, roof of the mouth. The jaw, if you can soften the jaw, that feels really good. Relaxing the face. And relax and soften the whole body as much as you can. And just be aware of any places that don't want to soften. These can be common areas of tension. Just take a few breaths into your whole body and appreciate it as much as you can. Breathe into it like you're saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being healthy in this moment. Thank you for walking and talking and all the things that we do in our physical body. It doesn't get a lot of appreciation. So that's a beautiful way to really honor that level. And we'll keep with the breath now and breathe a little bit more deeply, if that feels okay for you. If it doesn't, then you can keep the breath gentle. But we want to just allow the breath to flow. Like it's not, it's very easy to breathe. And it feels really lovely when it goes into the body. It's bringing in fresh oxygen and prana, energy. And we can direct our attention to the breath. And we can start to breathe into the soles of our feet, not just into the lungs, because the breath is energy. So it can go everywhere in the body. So see if you can do that. Breathing into every cell, breathing into the soles of the feet. And we are witnessing our breath moving through the body. We're able to see and feel that happening. And we may be able to feel the subtle vibrations inside of the energetic body. These little tingling sensations. Maybe you can describe that as like a aliveness. It's a beautiful word. Like the energetic body is alive, it's vibrant. So no matter how tired we feel, and our physical body can feel really heavy, but the energetic body can be like, ooh, very vital and alive inside. Good. And of course, there's the whole network of energy centers and energy channels called chakras and nadis. But we'll just go a little bit into the other levels of us. So let's explore the mental and emotional level. And so we can just sit, breathing naturally, softening in the body, and just be aware of any thoughts arising in the mind. Thoughts have the tendency to come from nowhere. It seems they stay for a while. And we either like identify, we put our attention on them and we think about them, or we can just witness them coming and going. So see what you are able to do. When a thought appears, you can be like, okay, I'm thinking about this. And then you can just let it go and come back to the softness and the stillness. And so we get to see how the mind works, the nature of the mind. We start to understand the types of thoughts that go through our mind. And that's really interesting. And then we start to be able to see from a different perspective. The mind, it's like the computer in our system. And so we have a little bit more distance from it rather than being absorbed and thrown by the stories that the mind creates. And then we can come to the emotions and just see if, is there any emotion? Is there an emotion here right now? How am I feeling? Frustrated, happy, sad, lonely, bored? What kind of emotion? Maybe there are no particular emotions that are arising right now. So we're just having a peek at all the different levels. And then we go to the more subtle levels. Vijnana Maya Kosha is the higher mind. And this is the level of mind that comes up with these revelations and insights and amazing epiphanies and ideas. And so to access this, unfortunately, we can't make this happen. So to access it, we need to listen more carefully. We need to become quieter. We need to take our attention away from the lower mind that is going around with the same thoughts like, when is this going to end? Or what am I going to have for lunch? Or why did I say that yesterday? All those kind of thoughts are coming from the lower mind. The higher mind is the wisdom that is within us. So to access this, actually we can breathe into the heart. The heart is the seat of wisdom. And we can just direct our attention into the heart and become very quiet and very perceptive. And just allow any insights or any whispers of truth that want to arise right now. The space to be heard. So in a longer meditation, you could sit in this space, for more time. And generally what you'll find is that there are little insights arising. The more space and the more silent and still we become. And then we go into the most subtle level that we can perceive, which is Anandamaya Kosha, or the bliss body. And we could maybe say peace, bliss. So when you become very silent, when you let go of the thoughts, the emotions, the physical body, the energy even, and we just start to drop deep into that silence, what we can discover is this beautiful underlying vibration, which is very subtle, of bliss. And it just feels like, everything's okay. Right now in this moment, just simply being here, not needing to go anywhere to do anything, just rest in this stillness. And there's a sense of, we can label that peace, we can label that bliss. So just for the next few moments, see if you can drop into that place. Good, and then start to breathe a little bit deeper. And come back through all those levels back into our physical body, feeling our physical body again. the solidity, the breath as well. And yeah, that is an exploration of the different levels of our being. So we're not just a physical body and a mind and some emotions thrown in, but we have different levels of us that are, yeah, very, to be honored, to be understood, to be witnessed, and to really be known. Yeah, so that is my, yeah, meditation.
It was beautiful. Thank you, Lorraine. Just such a simple practice. When I learned it from you, it's both in my teaching but in my own practice. Sometimes I think the more we practice with it, it can become like an everyday kind of check-in. I'm sometimes like it's like I just check in with the mental or the emotional, and recognize when I need some stillness, and when it's the physical body, or is it the energetic? Do I need to do some yoga to just move this energy? It's such a simple, beautiful framework.
Yeah, I think for a lot, and I include myself, like when I'm talking about this, but a lot of us don't have a lot of emotional intelligence. We're not taught that, And so sometimes when you go like, what emotion is here? You're like, oh, I don't know. I'm so disconnected from my emotions. I can't actually feel. Or maybe we've just like blocked out the emotions because we don't want to feel anything like sadness or grief. So this can be a reconnection, and it'll make you feel more alive. I think this
and it comes in with curiosity.
Yeah,
this curious approach, and then to feel, and then when knowing at which layer, where it is, then it feels very gentle and empowering, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Like we are all of that. Everybody is all of that, so why deny any part of us? So that I feel the same as you, when I was in yoga, or especially non-duality meditation retreats, and they would like vipassana, and they'd just say, oh, that's an illusion, or you are not that. And it really confused me for a long time, and it actually wasn't helpful.
No, it's not helpful.
No, because you're just denying parts of you, and it's all here, and I think this is a tantric way, a tantric attitude of like, embrace everything. Everything is God, everything is divine. So we don't dislike parts of ourselves, or we're not trying
to disown them. Yeah.
Like,
just a word on that. Is it Advaita? How do you pronounce the meditations that are always saying I'm not my body? What's that? What's the tradition that's
Advaita Vedanta?
Yeah.
It's very much this neti, which is negation. And I understand why they do it. I'm not my body, because most people just think I am the body and that's it. I always said to my teachers, shouldn't they really say I'm not just the body? Like, that word just is kind of essential.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah. Because if I'm saying, and I've been in satsang where teachers are saying you are not the body, and I've been sitting there as a young, very enthusiastic spiritual seeker going, oh, I'm not the body. What? And I've tried to understand that, and it took me quite a long time to actually turn around and go, I am the body, but I'm also spirit, and I'm also, like, I'm a complete.
What's that about then? I mean, like my parents were Catholics. I didn't grow up Catholic, though. They'd renounced it by the time I came into the world.
Yeah, same.
But it's if I think of the Catholic Church and priests and renouncing sexuality and the body, but we can see from, the church system, and now with, the revelations of the sexual abuse and all that sort of shadow, that when you do deny something like that, what happens? It's not a healthy community or society. But what is it about? Like, why, maybe this is a bigger question, you know, why do religions and faiths and, you know, schools of spirituality, and this is maybe coming back to the feminine or a woman's body. So if a woman gives birth or a woman can carry a baby, that is such an embodied experience.
Yeah.
That maybe it's been the women who are asking that question. Well, hold on, we can't say I'm not a body, you know. Like, you know, is that a more masculine, if we're looking at this duality approach, you know?
Yeah. I would say so. You know, I hate to generalize, but I would say that men are more drawn to that teaching than women. Women are more drawn into an embodied practice that honors all the different levels, which is more tantric in its view. And men tend to want to go into caves and meditate in the silence, and I'm not this and I'm not that. But that is a sweeping generalization.
Yeah, well, on that, maybe just as a, because I often think of that, of the man in the cave, and then I think of the woman with her many diverse roles that many women do have, particularly of my students and who'll be listening to this call. Many women can't even get away for a day of retreat, let alone go and live in a cave. You know, they've got, you know, the children, the housework, the businesses, the, you know, the busy lives that women lead. But one woman, like I've been a person who hasn't tended to follow gurus, and Lorraine and I have talked extensively about this. But when I read about Anandamayi, you know, when we passed through Haridwar and went to the ashram there, and I got a beautiful biography of her history. And what I was so struck by with that was her life story was that she was doing the housework for her husband and for her brother-in-law, because I think he lost his wife. And so she was a busy lady, you know, doing the house, the cooking, the cleaning. And then as the biographer wrote about her, was she would then break into these spontaneous headstands and shoulder stands, like unusual, you know, yoga postures. Yeah. But they were all amazed at her because she hadn't attended any yoga, yes. You know, hadn't learnt formally, but she naturally, you know, but it was kind of like, I love that story because what it sums up to me is the house, you know, the householder. Well, it's a horrible term I've read it in a lot of the interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, you know, they talk about the householder and that you know, but I suppose it's a person who's living in society as opposed to in a cave, has the opportunity to go to a mountain cave and abscond from like just not be engaged in society. Whereas for me, the really growing edge and where the service opportunity comes of being of service is to be engaged in your community and still doing your yoga. So any opportunities, I try to really teach my students as many practices that they can weave into their day. So it's not like a 2-hour yoga sequence in the morning they have to do before they start to make the kids lunch, you know, and then, you know, do the business items, you know. So it's like how we weave this in. And so small practices that honor our whole being, but also our whole life is so important. Yeah.
And I think we find the practices that work for us and our lifestyle. You know, for somebody who is alone and doesn't have children and doesn't have a partner and is, then why not go to a cave? And that's actually a beautiful practice for them. But for us who, you know, we're more in the world and we have jobs and kids and all things like that, then we have to moderate that and make it accessible for us to find. And it's both ways are beautiful, you know. These little micro practices that you can bring in to your daily life. And that's actually what I teach in my course, for that reason that you've just described.
And maybe this is the more, I mean, we've used the word feminine, but it's also the evolving nature of yoga and how it serves our communities, women and men, and the lifestyles. So Lorraine, thank you so much for calling me at this time, and I'd love to do another one if you would love to, because I'd love to chat more about the wisdom goddesses of yoga, because
amazing.
Love that. So thank you so much, and I'm sure the people watching this will love our meandering conversations and the meditation. So in the show notes, so in the description below, this will be on YouTube, and so we'll be able to share on wherever we want to on social media. But we'll share some links of Lorraine's upcoming online courses as well as in person for those who can get to Thailand. And so look out for those, and then we'll do another one of these calls sometime soon.
Oh, I look forward to it.
Thanks so much, Lorraine.